All right, so STLC. Right here, right? So we've completed test analysis, requirement analysis, test plan, test cases, RTM, test environment, test execution, identifying and logging defect, tracking defect. Any confusion on tracking part? I know we talked about identifying and logging defect. How do you identify and log a defect? Let's talk about it a little bit. Just take next 5 to 10 minutes. Let's talk about this. So how do we identify and log a defect? How do we know it's a valid defect? What do we do when we find a defect? Anyone has any clue on that?
If the expected and actual results don't match, then you know there's a defect.
Yeah, that's right, Rosine. Now, when you find a defect, someone else, can you answer me? If you find a defect, what is your first step?
You try to reproduce it.
Yeah, making sure it's a valid defect before you log it. Now, on the summary of defect, what goes into summary of defect? Someone else.
You basically say what the issue was, what the defect is.
On the summary. So we have the summary, right? Summary of defect. Two things goes in the summary of defects. Anyone remembers?
Yeah,
Well,
this location
what?
and the
What is the defect?
Where and what, right?
Yes.
Where was the defect and what is the defect? Two things, nice and clean. Okay, that's good. Okay. What about in description? What goes into description? Let's select someone else. Shahi, do you have understanding of defect description?
In the description, you just say what went wrong. What is the bug? Like, let's say if it doesn't allow you to enter into a website with a certain browser.
Someone else. Was Shahi was explaining, was it complete or can we add more to it?
Could I add something?
Please.
Oh, so in the defect description, the QA, we could like document any issues or problems with the application during the testing phase. We could involve like creating a report or putting specific details of like the defects in that description.
Okay, someone else. Can you explain what is defect description? What goes into defect description? Well,
from what I understood is right after the defect summary, the summary is basically just a very brief description of the defect. And the description is a little more, I guess, explanation behind it, describe it more clearly.
Okay, someone else. Defect description.
Could I add something?
Sure.
So in the defect description, you should have like the base summary, and then you could add like the steps to reproduce the issue. Also,
Exactly. That's what I was looking for. Defect under the description field. Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening while you're explaining. I'll try
you
to.
could add like the steps, and also you could add like the severity of the issue, how severe it is, and then also you could also add how much priority the issue is, if it's really high or really low. And if you really need, you could also add like screenshots or log files, so you can put it in the summary of that.
Okay, this is your defect description. Can you see my screen on the left hand side?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so in the description, you are pretty much giving the reproducible steps and your actual and expected result. This is your defect description. This is your summary. This is your description. And in description, you're describing as well as you are giving reproducible steps with actual and expected result. So in some cases, let's say you have written summary, but let's say your defect is pretty complex and this summary is not explaining the entirety of defect. Under description, you can add more description, but under description, your main agenda is to add steps to reproduce an actual and expected result. And obviously, screenshot is something you'll be attaching. Now, if we talk about priority, what is the priority? Do we understand what is the priority of a defect?
Priority is that how soon we should fix the issues.
That's one way of explaining, but what exactly?
Priorities, how important this issue or this function is important to the customer.
Right. And how anyone heard about severity as well? Priority and severity.
Yes.
Severity is actually impacting the actual application functionality, how is impacting the business aspect of it. And the priority that is a testing prospect, how soon we fix that bug or bug of the problem or the defect.
Okay, that's good. Now, if I ask you to give me an example of high priority, high severity bug, can someone give me an example of high priority, high severity bug?
If you can create 2 accounts with the same username, that would be a blocker or high severity.
That could be one case, yes, but there are a lot more obvious high priority, high severity cases.
User not being able to log in with the appropriate credentials.
Exactly. Application is not accessible. Application is not allowing user to log in, or login functionality is breaking, or any of the major functionalities breaking is high priority, high severity bugs. But if I were to ask you, give me an example of high priority and low severity bug. Anyone has any idea, like what would be a high priority?
Low severity will be a bug that's some cosmetic issues on a page, which is not impacting the functionality of the application.
But would that be a low priority, low severity, or would that be high priority, low severity?
That will be low severity, low priority.
So then if I ask you to give me an example of high priority but low severity.
High priority, low severity.
If one of the pages on the website isn't working,
That's high priority, high severity. If a page is breaking entirely, that's high priority, right?
I mean, those cosmetic issues that he was referring to, that could also be high priority, right? For example, if the company's, one of their main things is not showing up, like a JavaScript error
Like
or something.
company name or misspelling of company
Right.
name.
Yeah, that's it.
Or the product image.
The logo, maybe.
Exactly. Something that is visible to customer, something that is in the main page, cosmetic issue, would be high priority but low severity because it's not impacting the application. It is as the GUI functionality, which is cosmetic. It doesn't have any impact in the application, but it looks bad. Cool. Good discussion, guys. What else? Anything else? Okay, tracking. In terms of tracking defects, how do you track defect? How do you track a defect? What is the process of tracking a defect?
Process is when we find when the the expected result is not as match as the actual result.
That is a defect. That's a logging and identifying. That's the first part. But once you log it, you have done your first part. Now, how do you track the defect?
then when we first we find the defect, then we log it that the status become new, and when it's somebody open it, then 1 second.
Okay, your understanding is there, but can someone else try to give some input here?
Yeah, could I give some input?
Sure.
So you first identify the defect and then you create like a defect report, and the, like, for example, like the defect summary, the steps to reproduce, whatnot. And then you assign the defect to, you know, the developer, and then you just monitor the progress and you find a solution for that defect, and then you just close it out.
So tracking defect is nothing but defect lifecycle, following the status in the defect lifecycle. You guys are familiar with defect lifecycle, right?
Yes.
So you log the defect, and depending on the priority of the defect, let's say if it's a high priority, high severity bug, obviously you have to give more importance to that defect. And tracking is nothing but knowing where your defects are. If it's a low priority defect, like, you know, you can relax a little bit, but if it's a high priority bug, obviously, you know, you need to focus more on that defect, knowing where the defect is. If you need to reach out to somebody saying, hey, we need you to fix it ASAP, you know, you got to do that. If you need to escalate, if you need to reach out to business or manager saying, hey, we need this defect to be fixed ASAP, things like this. So knowing where your defects are in terms of status in defect lifecycle is nothing but tracking the defect. All right, moving on.
Just a quick question here.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of tracking the defect, would that fall under the job of the QA? Meaning, for example, if you've assigned the defect to the developer, are we going to be the ones that are kind of pushing it through, saying that, okay, we're waiting on a result for it, has it been fixed? Is it something we'd be pushing, or would that be someone else?
Usually, so we have a, I don't know if you guys heard about triage team. We have defect triage team. We have defect triage meeting. It's nothing but 3 teams involved in defect triaging. Business is nothing but BA, business analyst, dev, and QA. These are the 3 teams involved in defects. In terms of making decision when the defect should be fixed, what is the priority of the defect, and how to prioritize those defects. Now, your job is not necessarily to escalate or push or things like this, but as a team, right, you know, we need to make sure that we are successful as a team. And when you log a defect, you know the urgency of the defect more than anyone else. You know the priority of these defects more than anyone else. So there will be time, like, you know, you need to go above and beyond, and you need to go and when you create the defects, most often what I have seen, developers are not always on top of it. They have like all kind of other works they're prioritizing, but you need to go push for it. I can give you a couple of examples. Okay, you guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right, let me show you, give you some example. So, but today I'm not seeing Rajubai on the call, and I am very, very sad. This is the first time in years that Rajubai did not attend the call. That's not okay. We got to send a special note to Rajubai, right?
I guess he's on a iftar dawat.
Okay. Regardless, he was always on, but we have to send him a special note saying that we missed him. Okay, so I got to find this advanced QA tickets. This is also defect tracking. Okay, here you go. So look at this defect tracking. I have created this page. You don't have to do this. This is an example of going above and beyond. I'm just showing something. We had a huge release, major release on February 15th. So that release, we literally worked 2 years behind that release. So we went live with that release. After that release, we ended up with a bunch of bugs. We had n number of bugs with different priorities. You can see major, critical, and a lot of major criticals and you know, blocker, critical measurement. This is the definition. So I created this page to track those defects. If we had like one or two is one thing, but we have like here we have probably 20, 30 defects. So what I did is like created those defects, given proper priority and status, and I have requested them to provide the ETA, which they never done. If you look at it, they never. Maybe one person did it. And that doesn't mean they're not working on it. So I have assigned it to different team. Now I have left a section for comment. So this is above and beyond. Like this is not necessarily my job, but you know, I need to see my application is more stable. It has less bug and things like this. So I needed to take a step knowing I have 30 bugs sitting in my application, which does not make me comfortable. So what I have done here, created this page and assign each ticket to a different team, not just only on different individual, also on different team. And I asked them to fix these bugs. Now I created this in one place and I was tracking them as well as I asked everybody to track it. 46 people you can see view this page. And what I have done, not only this, like I created this page also in our meetings, I brought up this page and I said, hey, Team Hyderabad Cats, you have this bug, can you fix it? Team Senior Cats, you have these 3 bugs, fix it. So this is my way of escalating, also tracking and making sure, ensuring that my bugs are being fixed. But ideally, this should have been done by business analyst or business. But of course, we will give input and things like this. But sometimes what happens, you don't have many leaders in your team. So you need to be a leader outside of your responsibilities. So that's what in some cases you have to do. All right, any other questions, guys? Right. So today we're going to complete STLC, which is a huge milestone. You guys, this is STLC, your testing life cycle. If you know this, you are a tester. You are a tester. You should know everything about becoming a quality assurance and tester. And today you're going to be one. So now we know about tracking and everything. Let's talk about analysis of report, test analysis report, also known as STAR. This concept has disappeared from the industry. Like when I say concept, like talking about exact report. Now with Agile, everything has changed. So test analysis report, also known as STAR, was very, very popular in the industry 10, 15 years back. Now it is disappearing, but we still have the reporting concept, status report. Right now, everybody goes by status report. But test analysis report, learning about it is the right thing to do. And if you can learn it, you can create any type of reports. In here, they want nothing but analysis of your testing. When I say they, like project management or us, even QA, we want to know like status report, where are we in terms of our current testing and how the testing went and whatnot, things like this. If we're talking about just a simple status report, we mainly want, and the management mainly want to know how many test cases has been created, how many test cases has been executed, how many test cases has been passed, how many test cases has been failed. That's one thing. The other things are like, you know, how many defects has been logged, how many defects are in different status. For example, you know, high, medium, statuses are open, in progress, verified, closed, things like this, you know, in the testing lifecycle, a defect lifecycle, basically. Then what are the different priorities of the defects? How many of them are open? How many of them are closed? Things like this. So there is no set format or template for this. You can create something that makes sense, or you can Google it and whatnot. I have an example of a status report created by Sister Nadira on the last batch. Test status report, project name. This, if you're sending this via email, right? Just these things are fine, like, test metrics. They want to know about test metrics, total number of test cases planned, total number of test cases executed, total number of test cases passed, total number of test cases failed. This is nothing but testing metrics. You can create those fancy chart. The ratio is showing the ratio of test cases in different status. And here are the defects. So obviously this is one aspect of the report is test cases, and the other one is the defect. Parent status of defects, 5 critical, total 95 critical, 134 major, minor 153, total number of defects, 382 in different statuses. 85 of them are open, still open, resolve 123, close 166. 8 of them are still assigned. And different.
Brother, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
The data you're showing here, as an individual tester, how I will get all this data? Because I will have my own data, but overall picture, how I am gonna get all this data, and from where?
Very good question. This is status report. It represent overall status of the project. It's not individual. No one cares about individual performance or individual status. Everyone wants to know the status of the product, the actual project. So if we're using a tool, Jira tool, everything is in one place. You can just fetch the report, filter the report, and share across. If you're not using a centralized tool, this is when every single tester has to submit their work, and one person can put it together and send out the collective status report. It's a good question, but you never want to send out an individual status report out. It has to be collective, a team report, the entire project report from testing point of view. We'll be creating those. This is just a first exposure to this report, but we'll be creating those when we work in our project. Rest of them, I don't think is very, very important. I can show you a couple of examples probably in my Jira. If I go to my dashboard, I have different reports that I pull, and this is the Jira tool. It allows you to create report. So if I go here, which one should I? Okay. So this is a fancy report you can get from your Jira. Once you have Jira, you can do this. So this is my front-end dashboard. Here, like different statuses, we have tickets, bug tickets in different statuses, like draft, accepted, ready for QA, closed. Total issues are 79. When you click on it, it's going to take you to that filter. When you click on it, it's going to take you to that filter, and it will show you all those defects that are showing in the dashboard. Overall open tickets, I want to find out not just bugs. I want to know what all, these are advanced stuff, guys. You don't have to know this. You don't have to do it now. If you're getting confused with this, don't worry too much about it. These are the information eventually when you become an expert, you will know how to do. But right now, it's everything. As always, I try to give you exposure to everything so you understand it. Right, so we have different type of tickets. For example, story, task, epic, test, bug. I want to know, how many different tickets we have here. So I have story 109, task 86, and so on. Bug 24. So here we are fetching different things. Ticket by status, different status, don't worry so much about it. And then obviously our sprint, 2 days remaining. So things like this, you can create, fetch, and share. And from here, you can simply share something. give access to some people. There's a way you can share it from here, or you can simply take a screenshot of it and send it via email, or
There's the option on there, rename or share, in that 3 button, the 3 dot was in there. Rename or share.
yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I was looking for. So you can simply share it here, share it to different group or different individual. So this is something easy to do. And right now, don't worry too much about test analysis report. When you think about report, what do you think of? Status of whatever it is, whether if it's a project or anything else. So there's no standard for it. It's just how you convince your manager when you send a report. When you send a report out, he could say, hey, can you add this item into your report and whatnot? And next time you will add those. But just to understand, when you're talking about testing report, you want to send them about your test cases and your bugs. These are the two things they're very, very focused on. Right. Lastly, meetings. There are a number of meetings when it comes to software development lifecycle or software testing lifecycle. We have so many different types of meetings. For example, we have daily stand-up meetings, we have sprint planning meetings, sprint review meetings, sprint retro meeting, backlog grooming, requirement understanding, defect triage, project status call, QA sign-off call. These are just to name a few. Meetings could be anything, right? Someone can set up a call with you, say, hey, I want to have a quick catch-up call with you, or I want to have a call with you about certain things. So meeting can happen at any point, at any time. But when we go learn about Agile, we'll understand a little bit more about, different standard and whatnot when it comes to Agile and different type of meetings. So for now, just understand, like as a tester, you need to be part of different type of meetings. One of the most important meetings is daily stand-up meetings. This is where you talk about what are the things you're working on and what are the challenges you're facing, things like this, like quick status. This call is usually 15 minutes long. Usually standard is 15 minutes long, but some cases I have seen half an hour. This should not be half an hour unless if you have a big team, but it's 15 minutes. Everyone talks about, hey, this is what I'm working on and these are the challenges I'm facing. That's all, nothing more than that. It's very short and simple. Obviously, sprint planning, you can see here, this is where you plan your work. Then you're saying sprint review, this is where you review your work. When I say your, I'm talking about the entire team. The retro meeting is where you talked about, like, what are the things went well, what didn't, and how to improve. And rest of them, don't worry too much at this point. We'll talk about it later. Just one other meeting, defect triage meeting. This is where I talked about earlier, right? 3 teams are involved, QA, dev, and business. 3 parties are involved. So when you have backlog of defects, when you have n number of defects in your backlog, what do you do with it? You go and prioritize those defects. And how do you do that? You will go into your defect board, wherever it is. It could be anywhere, right? QA tickets. Okay, so these are strictly defects. So now you'll go here one by one and say, so we log the defects, right? When you log the defect, you log the defect individually. When I say you, the quality assurance, when you log the defect, there are certain fields in the defect, right? For example, if you look at this defect, you add your description, your summary, and everything, and here you're adding the priority of it. This defect is not a good example, but let's see if we can work with this. More fields, priority. Okay, so here you define the priority. You said it's a major bug, but we as a triage team, we're going to review it and make sure that you said is a major bug, do we need to change the status? Do we need to make the priority higher to critical or blocker? If we think that we need to update it, we'll update it. If not, we'll leave it alone here. Then we'll, in the triage call, we're gonna say, all right, we're gonna assign it to an individual or a team who should fix it. So in here, we'll review it. First of all, it makes sense, it's clear, and the priority is defined and updated if necessary. Then we're gonna assign it in the triage call to individual who should work on it. And also we're gonna add fixed version. Where is the fixed version? Yeah, fixed version right here, meaning which this fixed version is it's hard to explain right now to you guys because it's still early. So fixed version is basically when we're going to fix it. There are different releases, there are different timeline has been set for different releases. Which release we should put it under? Is it the current release or is the future release? Things like this. So we add fixed version within the triage call. So this is what we talked about in the triage call, and this could be your interview question, like what do you do in the triage call? You pretty much prioritize the bugs and provide clarity if requires. So this is your STLC, as the entirety of STLC. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question, brother.
Yeah.
If we don't have any project management tools like Jira, then who will responsible to create system test analysis report?
The entire QA team. The entire QA team, like you saw here, there was a analysis report created in the Word document. So everybody from the QA team will be giving their so you can get on a call and put all of your details together and create a document like this, right? You should have a template, right? You should have a template in place. So total number of test cases. If you guys collect the number of test cases was created from each individual, you can add this number here. Number of execution was done by everybody. Is put it together and then add it to this section and then whatnot. This is easy to do. And right now, don't worry about like not having a tool. Every single company has a tool in place, pretty much. Whether if it's Jira or something else, something that helps you. If not, like you have Shared Drive, you have Google Drive. Those are there too. So you just need a platform where you can see, we can work together and see each other's progress. All right, so now that we are done with STLC, how do you guys feel? Do you feel better? Do you have more clarity as a QA? Or still confused?
No, I think overall, just understanding the process, I think it's a little more clear now than it was at the beginning.
Perfect. So now
I think the toughest part of this whole process would be the test cases. As long as the work is done properly on there, everything else would go up.
Yeah, exactly. Test cases is where you become an expert. This test cases is where you validate the application. Test cases is where you can measure the application's health. And this is where you need to do a good job creating test cases. All right, so if you have this document, we have description of each of these phases here, like each of these phases that we just discussed. The descriptions, details are here. Feel free, each of them, like test plan, we went above and beyond and explain everything here. So much information here. Feel free to go over it. You must go over it, basically. Okay, so this part is done. Now we need to talk about testing, right? So in terms of STLC, pretty much everything is done. Okay. So now we need to talk about testing. There are different types of testing. It's not just one type of testing. There are different type of testings, and it's important that we understand the difference and different type of testings in STLC. And it's going to be hard to cover it in this call, but we'll try. Next 15 minutes, we'll try our best to do that. When it comes to testing, right, is nothing but executing your test cases. And last week or week before, we have done this, right? You know, we went over execution. And what is test execution is just step-by-step process of following the test cases that you write, right? When we said, okay, verify user is able to log into the application, what do you do? Step one, open the browser, then enter the URL, hit enter, enter username and password, click enter, things like that. These are your test execution. These are your testing. So when it comes to testing, there are many different type of testing. It's just not one type of testing, many different type of testing. Do you perform all different type of testing? No, you don't. You just do one or two, but you need to know all of them to be a good QA and also for your interview purpose. So I'll try to explain this as best I can. There are two kinds of testing, two types. Should I say kinds or types? There are two types of testing in software life cycle. One is black box testing, one is white box testing. Black box testing is responsibility of a quality assurance tester, and white box testing is a developer's responsibility. So basically two types of testing. One is black box, one is white box. Black box is nothing, you know, as you can say, name itself is saying black box. Black box meaning you're testing an application, but you don't understand the code, right? Every application is written in different programming language, but we QA, we don't understand that language, and we don't need to understand that language. It could be written in Java, JavaScript, or Python, Ruby, any type of programming language. But we QA, we do not understand that language. That's why we are testing as kind of blindly, like not understanding the code, but we are testing, but we don't understand the code. That's why the name itself came out as black box testing. So we are testing without understanding the code, which is fine. We don't need to understand the code. So just understand that. White box testing is testing the code itself. So this is whoever is performing this testing, they understand the code properly, and they need to test the code itself. And who can do that has to be developers, right? They have done their coding, so they understand the coding. We did not code, we don't understand the code, but we understand the logic, we understand what the expectation, we understand the requirement. So based on that, we test. All right, so we'll try to, as long as this is clear, now we can move on. So in terms of different type of black box testing, this is a different type, right? System testing, smoke testing, sanity, Adhoc, end-to-end, functional testing, regression testing, back-end testing, load testing, stress testing, performance testing, alpha testing, beta testing, UAT testing, shakeout testing, security, usability, compatibility, rehost, GUI, monkey pilot, recovery. All of these are black box testing, and this is the responsibility of QA. Moving on to white box testing. White box testing is only two types, unit and integration. And this is done by developers. Developers does this type of testing. And that's it, simple, right? Now, when it comes to black box testing, we really perform, like we do a lot of smoke testing. We do a lot of ad hoc testing. We do a lot of end-to-end testing. We do a lot of regression testing. We do some backend testing. We do some compatibility or cross-browser testing. We do some GUI testing. And that's it. Let me show you. All right, let's go here. This will make more sense. Okay, so compatibility, what is compatibility testing? Compatibility testing. All right, so take a look at this. Understanding this concept is very, very important. So I think it's getting late, guys. We'll have to continue on this next week as well. But understanding this is very, very important. These are all type of testing. If you look at this, everything under this testing, the one highlighted in yellow, this is developers type of testing, which is white box. We are not responsible. The ones are highlighted in red. Do not even worry about it. I never done this or never came across, but it's just for your just understand the name, just know the name in case somebody says in the interview monkey testing, which will never happen. But just know the names. But everything else, like, we have to understand. So these are all type of testing, and these are two main type of testing we're trying to explain here: black box and white box. We have separated white box from the black box. These are black box testing. These are white box testing. Under black box, so we will not worry about white box testing. This is developers, let them deal with it. We're not going to worry about it. Now, our main responsibility is black box testing. So let's go move forward with the black box testing. So here we're going to break down the black box testing. Under black box testing, everything is a system, right? Remember, guys, we talked about what is a system in the very first day of the class, right? What is an application? What is a system? And what is a project? Things like this. So system is nothing but the entire application. So when you perform all type of testing and under the application, it becomes system testing. So system testing is like an umbrella, the entire application. So for example, if we take facebook.com, that entirety of the Facebook is a system, is the entire system. Now, underneath that, you perform various type of testing. Now, under system testing, there are two types of testing as well, functional and non-functional. So you can see the trend from here, like, all type of testing has two parts, black box and white box. And then under black box, we have, again, two types of testing, functional and non-functional. So we just understanding purpose. What is the functional testing as a whole? Functional testing is to test the functionality of the application. When I say functionality, what do we understand? Functionality meaning, does that application load properly? Does that application allows you to log in? Does that application allows you to navigate? Does that application allow you to perform different action? Each and every action you have in that application, does it allow you to do that? Like from logging in to going to a different section to filling out that application, anything related to that application, application's functionality is considered as functional testing. Now, do I need to give an example? So if we go here, every little things you see in this application from, so this is just text, nothing to do here. But if you have a clickable field, can you click on it? Does it takes you to the next phase, like start today? This is a functionality. If I click on it, will it take me to a different page where I'm going to sign up? And when I come here, can I enter my details, submit it, things like this? Everything you see here is functionality. So things like this, basically, when it comes to functional testing, we need to test. Now, non-functional part of it. So non-functional is nothing but performance of it, like how fast that application loads, how much time does it takes for that application to load with one user, how much time does it takes that application to load with 100 user and 1,000 user and 10,000 and 100,000 and so on. So this is functional testing is nothing but the performance of that application, like how fast, when does it break? Every application has a capacity in terms of how many users can it hold at once. So you need to hit that benchmark, and that benchmark will be defined by a business. So this type of testing has nothing to do with functionality of that application. They don't care if the if the application works in terms of functionality or not. They care about how long it takes for that application to load. So this is non-functional testing, and we as a we are usually functional tester. We are not non-functional tester. Usually, every company has a sets of testers. Usually, it's one person doing non-functional testing. Depending on that company, they have like performance tester sitting on the bench and doing their performance testing. But some cases we can do it too. It's very easy now with different technology and tool. It's easy to do. We can do it too. But we focus on the functionality of that application, and that is the crucial part of it. If the functionality doesn't work, doesn't matter if that application loads faster or not, it doesn't really matter. So when it comes to functional testing, these are the things we need to understand thoroughly. Smoke testing. What is a smoke testing? Smoke testing is whenever a build is given to you, the very first testing you perform is smoke testing. Definition of all of these are written in this document. Everything is written here. Yeah, I'm surprised smoke testing is somewhere in the bottom. We should reorder this. Yeah, it's right here. Okay, I'll work on it. So smoke testing is the very first testing that's performing an application, and it's an interview question too. They might ask you what is the very first testing you perform on an application. Your answer should be smoke testing. And what is smoke testing? Smoke testing to verify the major functionality is working fine or not. For example, if you have an application given to you, you just need to log into that application to make sure that application works. You just need to go and say, okay, marker tool, right? So this was our test application. Does this application load? Can I log in? Can I go to home page? Yes, home page is loading. Flight page, it's loading. Hotel page. What happened? This is not loading. So this means this part of the application is broken. You can go report it and saying, hey, this is failing smoke testing because this major functionality of that application is currently not available. So, but in real world, it will work. And your first testing would be smoke testing. Once smoke testing passes, then you're going to move on to a different type of testing. Regression test. Regression test usually is performed two scenarios, right? Number one, like, let's say you're testing, you're doing functional testing, you find an issue, you report it, and they fix the issue. And they will say, okay, we fixed that issue, retest it. You're going to retest that bug and make sure it is fixed, and you're going to close that bug. At the same time, you're going to perform a minor version of regression test to make sure the fix they provided, it did not break any other areas of application. So whenever developers make some code changes or fix something, chances are they may break something else because the codes are sitting in one area. They change the logic, so it may fix one thing, it may break the other something else. So for that, you need to do a regression test. Another scenario, you will be performing regression test when you're about to sign off on the project. You're going to perform regression test to make sure everything is working fine. So regression test is a pretty big test. If you have an application having like 10 pages and each page has multiple module or multiple functionality, as part of your regression test, you have to test all of them. High priority test cases you have to execute from each of those pages of the modules. We're going to talk a lot more about regression test eventually, but just understand the basics of it. Moving on to ad hoc test. Ad hoc test is the only test only type of testing does not require having any test cases. So ad hoc test is randomly test. You test randomly. So you go from one area to another area, just test randomly to make sure that application is, check the application. You just check the health of the application randomly without having any proper plan. End-to-end test. So end-to-end testing is from beginning to ending. And usually like, you're checking different flows of the application. You're testing from A to Z, beginning to ending, from login to going through your flow and logging out, all of these scenarios. Then sanity test. Sanity test is minor version of regression test. It's nothing more than that, minor version of regression test.
Brother, can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
For the ad hoc testing, you said that it without any proper plan. Does it mean just picking up any functionality test without any test cases like that?
Yeah, you don't require test cases for ad hoc testing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Backend testing is testing the database. As you know, all the application, every single application has a database to store your information, everything you see. If you go to a given application on the front end, so if you go to register page, when you register, enter your information, it will disappear from here. Where does it go? It goes to database in the backend. So you perform some backend testing to see that information is stored properly. And we will practice it in here as well. Security testing. So there are multiple types of security testing. We are responsible to, so there are application security and there are network security. So network security, we're not responsible for it. It's a different group of people that do this, but we do basic level of security testing to make sure that application is secure and is not breakable. People do not have access to it, and hackers are not able to hack it. If an application is secure, like if you have login functionality, you need to make sure that user must have proper login to access that application. If someone does not have proper login, they do not have access to that application. So you need to kind of write proper test cases to make sure that users are not able to break that application. So that's your basic level of security testing. Usability testing to ensure that application is user-friendly, usable, easy to navigate. Some application might be built, is functioning properly, but is not user-friendly. So you need to just, I never perform this testing, but just understand this, what it is, but you may never need to perform this testing. What else? Compatibility testing. Compatibility testing is nothing but browser testing, cross-browser testing. And if an application is built on Chrome, we just need to make sure that it supports other browsers as well, like Edge, Firefox, Safari, things like that. So you perform testing in different browser to make sure that your application is compatible with different browsers. Often we see a lot of issues, web-based application issues with browser testing. One browser it loads properly, another browser it doesn't load. So we need to test it. So that requirement should be in place. Business should let you know which browser your application should be compatible with, and based on that, you just simply, usually you do your testing on one browser and then you'll just do another round of testing on the next browser to make sure it works fine. There are different browser version as well. Like, IE has disappeared, but Chrome, or any other browser has different version, but usually you should focus on the latest version unless business specify something else. And in that case, they need to let you know exactly what is the requirement. Rehost testing, ignore it, never worry. I never had to deal with this. It's, from what I understand, is one computer environment to another environment, but don't worry about it. GUI testing, graphical user interface testing. So this is the look and feel of that application to ensure is standard and whatnot. So in a nutshell, this is your functional testing. This is your black box testing. These are the testing that you will be responsible for when you go to the industry. So we need to practice this and we need to learn it thoroughly, and we will do so in coming days. Coming to performance testing. Performance testing has three major types of testing: non-functional testing, load, stressed, and should be volume. So non-functional testing should be part of performance. So this should be like this. Okay, so this should be non-functional or performance testing. Okay. So load is how long does that application takes to load. For example, you'll test the application with one user and see how long it takes, and then you will ramp up. You will add another 10 users to see how long it takes, then 100 and 1,000 and 10,000 and so on. And the question is, how do you do that, right? You know, it's hard to find 1,000 testers, right, to do the testing in one shot. Okay, so there are tools, there are simulators, there are different tools that allows you to add virtual user in the application. It does the same thing. And the goal here is to add all of those users at the same time to make sure how much load can that application take. And how the application loads. Stress testing to see breaking point, where does that application breaks. Where there would be a breaking point, like, you know, when it hits the limit, and you need to measure that and report it. Like I said before, this is not the responsibility of us. We are mainly a functional tester. We are going to focus on the functionality of the application. But with that being said, it's good to know what is non-functional testing. And it's easy to do nowadays with different tools, different technology, no big deal. All right, with that, I think I'm done. Let's take any questions or concerns or suggestions. All right, I'm gonna stop recording, but feel free to talk about it.